Part 83. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 848. Chapter 819. Father Zhou had given up on his eldest son a long time ago, so when his eldest son made such a decision today, he didn't feel much other than a slight disappointment. Zhou's mother is different. Both of her sons are flesh that fell from her own body. Relatively speaking, she is more partial to her eldest son because compared to her younger son, his eldest son's living ability is really poor. Even if her eldest son fell in love with a girl that dissatisfied everyone in the family, she still had hope for her eldest son. Such a kind-hearted eldest son would definitely be her pride once he enlightens one day. Unexpectedly, the eldest son suddenly made such a decision and abandoned all his parents and relatives. Unwilling to lose her eldest son like this, Zhou's mother kicked her husband and younger son out, and stared at her eldest son intently, her eyes full of reluctance and distress. Finally, Zhou Hai couldn't stand his mother's eyes and lowered his head. "Xiao Hai, raise your head and let mom take a good look at you." Zhou's mother stretched out her hand to caress her son's furry head and sighed, "When you were born, you only weighed 4.5 pounds, about the same as a big mouse. The doctor said when you came over, your mother didn't dare to pick it up, for fear of accidentally hurting you. Some things are like this. The more urgent you are, the less likely you are to be satisfied. I want to make you fat." As a result, my mother got mastitis before she was even 1 month old. The doctor said that it was because she was too anxious and always wanted to squeeze more milk for her. You drink, but it makes things worse. It doesn't matter if it hurts, but it's the most unacceptable thing for your mother to accept that you have to drink milk powder at such a young age. She couldn't sleep all night long, and her hair fell out in handfuls. You probably sensed your mother's mood, so you kept crying. Your body was too weak, and you often died from crying. But your mother had no experience at that time, so she thought you were crying because you felt uncomfortable, so she took you there. In the hospital, the doctor told mom that mother and child are connected, and you feel sorry for mom. Do you know how mom felt at that time? I feel sad, touched and annoyed that you actually feel sorry for your mother at such a young age, but your mother doesn't know what you need, and makes you suffer so much in vain. After returning home, mom adjusted her mentality, and you no longer cried. Seeing you getting healthier, mom was very happy. Every mother has different feelings about her first child. Mom didn't say this just because she wanted to persuade you. What mom said is the truth. Think about it for yourself. Although you are older than Xiaojiang, when did mom prefer Xiaojiangguo? Although, between you two brothers, in the eyes of most people, your younger brother is more promising. However, in mom's heart, you and Xiaojiang are equally promising, but your specialties are different. Because your physical condition is not as good as that of Xiaojiang, mom has been preventing you from leaving mom's side. Your dad often blames mom for hindering your growth, but... Taking a sniff, Zhou's mother continued, "But mom, I just don't trust you, I just want to see you all the time. Now, you are leaving your mother like this, and maybe you will never see her again in this life. Xiaohei, can you really be guilt-free? Mom doesn't want to stop you from falling in love. If you really like Yamiru, mom will also convince your dad and your grandparents to accept it. Promise mom to work hard and wait for Yamiru to come out, okay?" Zhou Hai was already crying. Of course he knew that growing up, his mother was the one who doted on him the most. Even when he and his younger brother were sick together, and his younger brother needed to sleep in a small bed by himself, he could sleep with his mother and receive care. Fortunately, his younger brother did not compete with him for favor, otherwise, the relationship between the two brothers would not be so harmonious. Leaving home, leaving his parents, abandoning everything to be with Yamiru, the one he most reluctant to leave was his mother, and the one he felt most sorry for was his mother. Some things are just like this, remember, but after a long time, they will fade away. When it is mentioned again, all the emotions will come up, and the reluctance will be even stronger. However, he also knew that if he did not go to Yamiru's side, she would not come out, and he would regret it for the rest of his life. If she came out, she would never be with him. He didn't mind guarding her as long as she was happy, but her character determined that if she went in this time, she would live in hatred for the rest of her life. He loves her, but he is not a man without right and wrong. He has already thought that if she still hasn't changed on the day she comes out, he will disappear from this world with her. It's not that he is great, but that he knows too well how painful it is for a person to live in hatred, and at the same time, it will bring so much pain to others. It would be better for him to accompany her to escape. Half an hour later, Zou's mother came out of the room. Zou's father and Zhejiang looked at her expectantly. Although they felt that hope was slim, they still hoped that a miracle would happen. Zou's mother shook her head and took the lead to walk out. "Mom." Zhejiang held her arm and wanted to persuade her, but found that he couldn't find the right reason or words at all. "Xiaojiang, do you have a good relationship with Lin Chuxia?" Zou's mother looked at her son and asked. "Mom, what do you mean?" Zhejiang looked at his mother worriedly. "She is only willing to help because we are classmates. She is married. You can't think nonsense. I don't care about your son. Girls have a special reputation. Important. What nonsense are you talking about?" Zou's mother glared at her youngest son and said, "What Mom means is that if your relationship with her is okay, Mom wants you to help Mom ask her out. Mom wants to talk to her. Mom, please don't make things difficult for her. She has done all she should do, and she has done what she should do. We should be grateful for her help without scruples. Forget about any other requests." Bar. Zouhai insisted on doing this on his own, and it's not like others forced him to do it. We can't persuade him, so what can others do? Mom, don't you think so? Knowing that his mother had always been partial to his brother, Zhejiang's first reaction was to persuade his mother to give up the idea. "If you don't help, Mom will go make an appointment with her." Father Zhou frowned and looked at his wife. "Yuzhen, I have done my best to be kind and righteous, what else do you want to do? Do you think I'm so unreasonable?" Zou's mother also frowned. "Do you know what I did to others, just to keep trying to persuade me to give up my thoughts?" "Mom, I'm sorry." Zhejiang apologized quickly, put his arm around Zou's mother's shoulders, and smiled flatteringly. "Then tell me and Dad what you want to do with her, okay?" "Xiao Hai." Zou's mother bit her upper lip, suppressing the tears that came up, and then told the father and son what Zouhai told her. "He persuaded me, and I decided to help him, but I hope the Zhou family can send a message to the Ye family. If possible, can we change the method, or let them only enter the outermost area? 1 year should pass quickly." Unexpectedly, this would be the result. Both father and son remained silent. After a long while, Zou's father sighed. That child's kindness was used in the wrong place. Early the next morning, Zouhai embarked on a journey to rendezvous with Yamiru. Yamiru, who had already arrived at the 5th team in Xiangzi, was sitting in a single room locked from the outside with a puzzled look on his face, making various guesses. She is very familiar with the 5th team of Xiangzi. Every member sent over will be put in immediately. From then on, they have to live with wild beasts and poisonous snakes when they are lost, have no food, and no clothes, and try their best to make themselves better. Survive. Or. Suddenly, her eyes lit up, or maybe Grandpa suddenly changed his mind. The more I thought about it, the more likely I felt that this was possible, and my original anxious mood calmed down. At this time, in the room adjacent to her, Zhang Qi and Ma Chao were sitting there, each holding a glass of water and sighing. The object of emotion was of course Zhejiang. There was such an infatuated man in the world. They really learned a lot. I used to think that the teacher was quite infatuated, but now, the position of the most infatuated man belongs to Zhejiang. The two of them had to go to the next stronghold to meet up in 2 days and wait for the official start of the mission, so they simply stayed here for the past 2 days, waiting for Zhou to arrive, and then leave after finishing the matter. Looking at each other, the two of them turned their heads away and looked out the window. For them, this mission was no easier than when Yamiru and the others came to Xiangzi Team 5, which was why Yamiru couldn't recognize them at all. Not to mention Yamiru, even if Zhou Mikang stood in front of them now, he might not be able to recognize them. Their superb disguise skills completely transformed them into different individuals. If it weren't for the sound of each other's voices, they would have felt completely unfamiliar when they saw each other. It is their mission and their wish to be able to perform such tasks, but only at this time, they are so envious that others have family members to tie them down. But it's okay, if you really disappear from this world, no one will live in pain for the rest of their lives. Zhou, this was the first time they met. When they saw this man of above average height, slightly thin, and pale, helplessness flashed in their eyes at the same time. Such a person actually had to go to a place like Xiangzi Team 5. It's strange that he came out alive. However, they admired this man quite a lot. They already knew the reason why he came here. At the same time, Zhou Mikang also told them his purpose. This changed their initial contempt for him to their current appreciation. At this time, Zhou did not need other people's persuasion and comfort, so when he arrived, Yamiru was taken out, and it was still Zhang Qi and Ma Chao who sent them into the hinterland. The moment she saw Zhou, Yamiru understood the reason for her stay. Her hope turned into bubbles. Zhou, who she had already approved of, immediately became hateful in her eyes. Updaters. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 849. Chapter 820. Zhang Qi and Ma Chao, who wanted to know, had already asked. Therefore, after getting in the car this time, neither of them spoke. Zhou stared at Yamiru infatuatedly since he saw her, almost even opening his eyes. Not even willing to blink. Yamiru also kept staring at Zhou. The difference was that there was nothing but hatred and disgust in her eyes. At this moment, she even regarded him as the culprit that brought her to this point. Glancing at the two of them from the rearview mirror, Zhang Qi shook his head inexplicably. He was really not worth it for Zhejiang, or maybe this was the so-called love affair with each other. The car drove about 10 miles away, and then there was no road. Ma Chao stopped the car and looked back at the two people who were still staring at each other in silence. Take your belongings and get out of the car. Zhang Qi added, you can run away, but you will be responsible for the consequences. Yamiru glared at him, nonsense. Zhang Qi's lips curled up but he said nothing. He was just adding salt to Yamiru's wounds, because those who entered this area were all chess pieces given up by each family. To put it bluntly, they were equivalent to people from each family who had been sentenced to death. Therefore, in the seemingly quiet forest, there are actually several snipers lurking with extremely accurate marksmanship. And these are not secrets. Of course everyone who comes in knows it. Unless their head is filled with water, who would know that the sniper is aiming at their head and still insist on sending it up? The few people walked forward in silence for a while. Zhang Qi and Ma Chao stopped. You two, we will send you here. You two should take care of the rest of the way, Zhang Qi said and looked towards Zhou. If you regret it now, we can take you out. I won't go out. Zhou rejected Zhang Qi's proposal without thinking. I worked so hard to come here and finally saw Miru, how could I leave? I hate you. Yamiru stared at him coldly. You know, just because of you, I had unreasonable hope, thinking that my grandfather regretted his previous decision. I was so happy waiting for my destiny to change, but in the end, She bit her lip bitterly. In the end, it was you who was waiting. If you stay here, it will only make me more depressed, do you understand? I can follow you. If you are in danger, I will appear in front of you as soon as possible. Otherwise, I will never hang out in front of you, okay? You. Yamira glared at Zohei gloomily. He turned around and walked inside. Since his destiny would not change, the most important thing was to adapt to the environment in front of him as soon as possible. Alternatively, it would be a good choice to have a scapegoat behind him. Thinking of this, Yamira finally felt better, while Zohei, who followed him, kept grinning. He knows the character of the other party, and such an attitude means that he has accepted his suggestion. Isn't that his purpose? For him, the whole meaning of life is to pass this test and one day get together with Yamira. Now, his goal has been initially achieved. As long as he is willing to work hard, the final goal will definitely be achieved. After the two figures completely disappeared, Zhang Qi and Ma Chao turned around and walked back. The next day, Chu Xia learned that Yamira and Zohei had entered the hinterland of Xiangzi Team 5. Of course, Zhang Qi and Ma Chao also told Zhou Mikang about the relationship between Yamira and Zohei, and the division commander Tongzi unexpectedly she told the truth patiently. After listening, she didn't speak for a long time. Unspeakable feeling. Not long after she and Zhou Mixang met, Yamira became an obstacle between them. She tried every means to destroy them and snatch Zhou Mixang away from her, but in the end, she was hurt more and more, and her relationship with Zhou Mixang was getting better and better. To this day, the two couples talk about everything and keep no secrets, which is basically the same. It's not that she pities Yamira, but she really doesn't know how to comment on such a person. As for Zohei, she didn't know how to comment. After Zhou Jiang's family went to see Zohei, Zhou's mother talked to her alone. She did not plead for mercy, but told her Zohei's plan truthfully. Zhou's mother said that she told her the reason not to ask her to help Zohei. But I don't want my son's good intentions to be misunderstood. Zhou's mother said that she did this because she hoped that when her son returns one day, he would be welcomed with kindness instead of assuming that he is a psychopath. Of course, there is another possibility that Zohei will never come back. In that case, his son's good intentions cannot be known. What the kind-hearted eldest son needs is understanding. He will not deal with it himself. As a mother, she just thought of it for him. Why, are you soft-hearted again? On the other end of the phone, after waiting for a long time from his wife to answer, Zhou Mikang had no choice but to speak. This is her own choice and has nothing to do with you. TCH. Chu Xia rolled her eyes unconsciously. Am I so blindly kind? I just thought of what Zohai's mother talked to me, and I felt a little emotional. Don't worry, I'm not that holy. To put it bluntly, if she doesn't go to the 5th team of Xiangzi, then I will basically be living in the 5th team of Xiangzi. Also, Grandma and Mother want to stay here for a longer time. You can call them to persuade them to go back. I have no other intention. I just think that the third aunt and the elder sister-in-law are still pregnant. Xiangping also needs to go back to her parents' house from time to time. If Grandma and Mother are not at home, they will not adapt. I have my parents here, and Mengran and the others to accompany me, so there is really nothing to worry about. Zhou Mikang responded, okay, I'll call them tomorrow. In fact, MRS Zhou and Lin Yangkai are also thinking about Wang Lei and Yu Tao, but they are not worried about Chu Xia, so you can imagine the entanglement in their hearts. When Zhou Mikang clearly told them that there was no longer any danger in Chuxia and they could rest assured, the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law finally agreed to stay in a city for another 5 days before returning to City A. In the past few days since arriving, I have been thinking about things and haven't even gone to the Lin's house in the capital. Now that they are leaving, the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law feel that out of politeness, they should go to the Lin's house in the capital. Since Lin Bao he recognized the Lin family, none of them, except Zhou Mikang, had ever been to the Lin family in the capital. As soon as they came here this time, Old Man Lin and Old Mrs. Lin came to see them. Due to emotion and reason, they should pay a return visit. As soon as Lin Baohe and Zhao Yulan discussed this matter, the couple agreed. Everyone specially found a Sunday, which was also a day off in early summer, and Uncle Wang drove the group to Lin's house. As soon as the car drove into the Lin family's courtyard, Old Man Lin and Old Mrs. Lin came out with their children and grandchildren. They had been notified of the visit before. Obviously, the younger generations of the Lin family had been summoned back today. Including Lin Wenbin and Lin Venhang, they all came back. What makes Chu Xia most happy is that Yuan Hui also comes together. Therefore, after everyone said hello and sat down, Chu Xia deliberately sat next to Yuan Hui and lowered her voice, "Sister Hui, why, can I call you sister-in-law?" Yuan Hui rolled her eyes and said nothing. The seats were full of seniors and juniors, and no matter how small the sound was, it would still fall into other people's ears. She couldn't say anything good. She was really embarrassed. Finally seeing the opportunity, Chu Xia pulled her aside and glared at her with a dissatisfied look on her face. "Did we really become a matchmaker and forget about the matchmaker? It's too much to roll my eyes at every question I ask you. There are so many people, what do you want me to say?" Yuan Hui looked helpless. "I still want to be shameless, little junior sister." Little junior sister, Chu Xia rolled her eyes and smiled happily. "I like this name. You can call me this way from now on, even if you marry your eldest brother, you can still call me this way, okay? Okay, as long as your elder brother is willing." Haha. Chu Xia smiled proudly. "I understand, my eldest brother has agreed to be with you, then I can rest assured, and the teacher and mistress can finally rest assured." Looking at Chu Xia, who was smiling like a little fox, Yuan Hui realized that she had been fooled, and sighed helplessly. Why are you so mean-spirited? I really admire you. I have hidden everything from you. Are you still using this method to defraud me?" One moment and another. Chu Xia looked at her innocently. "Aren't you worried that Sister Hui will deliberately lie about the military situation out of embarrassment?" "Do I dare?" Yuan Hui curled her lips unconsciously. "If I really lied, and you complain in front of your elder brother, then my lie will immediately become the truth." "This is too much of a hat." Chu Xia waved her hands repeatedly. "You can't say that. If I am involved in the matter between you and your eldest brother, I will never interfere with it, no matter how good the relationship is between you two. I don't get involved in it, whether it's good or bad, so don't give me this kind of label in the future. We have decided to get married next month." This time it was Chu Xia's turn to be speechless. The news was really beyond her expectation. Is this speed too fast? However, when she thought about the time between herself and Zhou Mixang from getting together to getting married, she felt that it was normal. Considering Lin Wenbin's age, Yuan Hui was not too young. It was normal for the two to get married as soon as they decided to settle down. "Is the date set?" "No," Yuan Hui smiled sheepishly. "This time, I will be brought here to meet the elders first. Then, the parents of both parties will determine the wedding date. After we get married, please ask my wife to come to the capital as soon as possible. It's too inconvenient to leave the teacher here alone. Let the teacher come to my house for dinner. He is too particular and says he can only come once a week." Chu Xia sighed. "Although the food in the cafeteria is not bad, you know the teacher's temper. When he is busy, he forgets all about eating. I packed it up and sent it to him, and he scolded me, saying that it would not affect other students if they saw it. Well, hey, it really makes him worried, and he's too particular, ours." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 850. Regarding her father, Yuan Hui also had a look of helplessness. My dad's personality is so awkward. You could say he's particular, and sometimes he's quite casual. But you could say he's casual, and sometimes he's insistent, very annoying. He actually treats you sincerely, but because he doesn't like to speak out his true thoughts, it often creates a sense of distance. Otherwise, he wouldn't have many friends even though he clearly has a good heart. Junior sister, it's rare that my dad approves of you and you approve of her, so I'll shamelessly ask you to help take care of my dad. My mom will be here soon, but my dad won't listen to my mom's advice at all. Okay, I will. Chu Xia nodded in agreement, and then asked, when will Master MRS come over? What about you, Sister Hui? What are your plans next? My mother will come here next week. As for me, I still want to stay in 401. After all. After a pause, Yuan Hui smiled sheepishly. After all, I just transferred to 401 not long ago. I don't want others to. I feel like I'm a person who doesn't distinguish between public and private matters. Chu Xia smiled mischievously. You don't want to let go of my eldest brother, right? There may be a reason for this. Yuan Hui was very honest, but her face turned even redder. Our relationship has just been established not long ago, so it is necessary to deepen our understanding, right? Of course. Chu Xia's eyes were full of smiles. Sister Hui, seeing how you look like now, I am especially happy for my eldest brother. He has finally found his happiness. My uncle and aunt will probably be happy. I'll wake up laughing even in my dreams. Well. Yuan Hui glanced at the group of people chatting happily, hesitated for a while, and then said, that's not necessarily true. We are not strangers to you, and I won't hide it from you. In fact, Wenbin's mother treats me it's not very satisfactory. Why? Chu Xia looked surprised. I don't know either. Yuan Hui shook her head. At first I thought I was too sensitive, but after getting along with him, I found that my feeling should be right. Aunt Zhang is indeed very enthusiastic towards me, but that kind of enthusiasm. After a pause and thinking about her words, she continued, that kind of enthusiasm is full of politeness and distance, which makes me feel like I want to get closer with all my life. She always feels like she is standing still. Have you told my brother? No. Yuan Hui shook her head. As you know, I have always taken the initiative in our relationship. I dare not say it because I am afraid that he will think that I am too involved. You want me to tell eldest brother? Chu Xia asked. No. Yuan Hui looked at Chu Xia with a serious face. Don't get me wrong, I'm telling you, I want to find out from you whether you know what Aunt Zhang is taboo about, or what kind of girls she doesn't like. I will rely on my own efforts to let her slowly accept me. If I need your help for this kind of thing, then my sincerity in this relationship is also open to question, right? After thinking for a while, Chu Xia said with regret, I don't know her very well, so I really can't think of the reason. Why don't you ask Big Brother about it? No. Without thinking about it, Yuan Hui shook her head and objected. She cherished the opportunity to be with Lin Wenbin, but she didn't want anything to happen because of something like this. She asked Chu Xia just with a sense of luck. It would be best if the other party knew. If he didn't know, then she would find out by herself. She believed that as long as Lin Wenbin was willing to be with her, one day his family would also. Everyone will recognize her, because she is with him because she truly likes him as a person and has nothing to do with anything else. Maybe others won't believe what she says now, but time is the best litmus test. She is sincere and patient. Little junior sister, everything I tell you is true. I ask you, I do have the idea of finding a shortcut. Since you don't know, I will take my time. Moreover, this is my guess now, maybe it's just because Aunt Zhang is in a bad mood during this time, or, another possibility is that she doesn't know how to get along with me. In short, for me, as long as Lin Wenbin doesn't change his mind, I will definitely stick to it. When I really need your help, I will ask you for help. Okay, seeing that her expression was serious and her eyes were clear, and she was not really being polite to her, Chu Xia responded, when you need my help, speak up, otherwise, I will be angry. After pouring out her worries, Yuan Hui became much more relaxed, and finally showed a smile from the bottom of her heart. Of course, you are my junior sister, I will not be polite to you. Facts have proved that Yuan Hui is definitely not sensitive, and there is a reason why Zhang Xinwan is dissatisfied with her, because after dinner, taking a chance, Zhang Xinwan pulled Chu Xia into her room. The first acquaintance was through Zhang Xinwan, and the person in the Lin family who cared about Chu Xia the most was Lin Wenbin. Therefore, Chu Xia was still very close to Zhang Xinwan. As soon as he entered the room, he asked with a smile, "Auntie, you are looking for me so seriously. Is there something big going on?" "Xia." Zhang Xinwan sighed slightly and looked at Chu Xia. "If it wasn't a last resort, I wouldn't do such an unpleasant thing, but now, for your brother, I must ask you for help." "What's wrong?" Although she was mentally prepared, Chu Xia still made a confused expression. She didn't want Zhang Xinwan to think that Yuan Hui was complaining to her, and thus dislike Yuan Hui even more. "I really didn't expect your eldest brother to confirm the relationship so quickly. Of course, I also like Yuan Hui very much, but..." After sighing again, Zhang Xinwan said with a worried look, "But now is really not the right time. Timing, if possible, I hope the relationship between your eldest brother and Yuan Hui will be made public after a while. As for how long, I'm not sure now. I talked to your elder brother, but he vetoed it. I had no choice but to find you. You have a good relationship with your elder brother, and you are familiar with Yuan Hui. Uncle Mom, please give me some advice, okay? Can you tell me what the reason is?" Chu Xia looked at her seriously. "Auntie, I know you are definitely not unreasonably picky, but if there is no reason, I will not be able to persuade eldest brother and sister Hui to do anything." "Right. Hey." After being silent for a long time, Zhang Xinwan said, "I blame myself for this. Originally, I was urging your eldest brother to quickly finalize his lifelong affairs so that the elders in the family would stop worrying. As a result, now, I am the one who stands in the way again. I am really no longer a human being inside and out. The reason is actually not complicated. I just don't want their relationship to have more unnecessary twists and turns. You know that Triple X is your eldest brother's first love, and you also know what thoughts she has. Of course, none of us want her to enter the Lin family's door. However, she has not given up until now, and even openly said that if anyone is with your eldest brother, she will compete with him. In fact, your eldest brother also knows this. He is a man and does not understand how terrible a woman's jealousy is. He said that when he and Yuan Hui got married, Wei Mian would naturally stop. However, how could a woman like Wei Mian come to this point? Maybe give up easily? Your uncle also knows about this matter and is discussing with the elders of the Wei family. They have put forward some conditions, some of which are acceptable and some of which are unacceptable. Therefore, it will take some time for the dust to truly settle. We just hope that during this period of time, your eldest brother and Yuan Hui will not make their relationship public. When this matter is settled, your uncle and I will immediately go to the Yuan family to propose marriage and help them arrange it. Xia, you know what kind of character the aunt is like. She will definitely not fool you with this kind of thing. Please help me and persuade your brother. But don't tell Yuan Hui, because the more lonely she behaves, the more Wei Mian will become. Don't worry, you won't deal with her. You and your elder brother should tell you these truths again. I believe that if you really love Yuan Hui, he will definitely be willing to cooperate. As for Yuan Hui, I will definitely compensate her later. Did the aunt and eldest brother say the same thing? He didn't listen to me at all. As soon as I mentioned it, he would get tired of saying that he already knew it all. Zhang Xinhuan smiled bitterly. To tell you the truth, sometimes my aunt is jealous of you. Although he is my biological son, to this day, your eldest brother is not one-third as good to me as he is to you. I am a little jealous, but I am also very grateful to you. It was you who opened his heart and made him willing to start a new life. At this point, she smiled sheepishly. Xia, my uncle said that. Are you laughing at my uncle? No, Chu Xia quickly shook her head. As a mother, of course you want your son to be closest to you. What's so funny? It's good that you can understand. Zhang Xinhuan breathed a sigh of relief. I really have nothing to do, hey. I will talk to my eldest brother, and I will also talk to Sister Hui. Chu Xia looked at Zhang Xinhuan seriously. Auntie, I don't agree with you hiding things from Sister Hui. The most important thing between lovers is frankness. Only with absolute frankness can there be absolute trust. Once some cracks are formed, they will never be the same again. You don't want the relationship between eldest brother and Sister Hui to separate due to misunderstanding. I will tell Sister Hui about Auntie's worries. I believe she will handle this matter well. Auntie, please believe me once, okay? After a slight hesitation, Zhang Xinhuan nodded and agreed. In fact, she also had some scruples about this. Thinking about the scenes after she and her husband were together, she also felt that Chu Xia's statement was right. I believe that if it is true, if we fall in love, she will definitely handle it well at the end, she added. Looking back, Chu Xia brought Lin Wenbin and Yuan Hui together and told Zhang Xinhuan's worries and concerns. As Zhang Xinhuan expected, after some persuasion by Chu Xia, Lin Wenbin looked at Yuan Hui inquiringly. I agree with Xia's opinion, what about you? I agree. Yuan Hui looked at Chu Xia with a grateful face. Little junior sister, I sincerely say thank you, just because you didn't hide this matter from me. Ah, Chu Xia was slightly startled. How did she know that Zhang Xinhuan had wanted to hide it from her? You know, for the sake of getting along with the prospective mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, she didn't mention it at all this time. Ours. First marriage then love. Mr. Mayor, please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 851. Yuan Hui winked at Chu Xia playfully. I'm not stupid. If Aunt Zhang originally planned to tell me, there would be no need to deliberately give me the cold shoulder. Obviously, she wanted me to misunderstand. Now, you are saying that she let you tell me. As long as I have a normal mind, I can figure it out, right? Well, it turns out that I am the fool. Chu Xia slapped her forehead hard and sighed. Did I really become stupid because of pregnancy? Ordinarily, I shouldn't be so stupid, right? You. Lin Wenbin looked at her funny. If the baby sees you like you are now, he will definitely despise you for not being a mother. Brother, you definitely forgot about your sister when you had a lover. Chu Xia stared at him with dissatisfaction. If I had known, I wouldn't have helped you, huh? Just accuse me wrongly. Lin Wenbin reached out and rubbed her head lovingly, then sighed again, stood up and looked at Yuan Hui. Let Xia chat for a while, and I will go to the hall to see the elders. There's something wrong, brother, what do you think? Chu Xia looked at Lin Wenbin and whispered to Yuan Hui in a low voice. In fact, her voice was within the hearing range of Lin Wenbin, and she obviously had no intention of hiding it from him. Lin Wenbin, who had already stood up, sat down helplessly. What's wrong with me? Tell me. I don't know what's wrong. Anyway, I feel that you are trying to escape by leaving in such a hurry. Chu Xia shrugged. Brother, what I really want to say is that we are all your relatives. There are some things that you should keep to yourself. If you carry it, talk it out, and brainstorm, it might be easier to solve it. You. Lin Wenbin shook his head helplessly. Of course he understood what Chu Xia meant. He just wanted him to communicate more with Yuan Hui to avoid conflicts due to silence. However, he really didn't want Yuan Hui to let Yuan Hui know about this matter. Too much blending. He felt that as long as he and Yuan Hui got married, Wei Mian would naturally stop, so there was no need for them to worry about it during this period. Afraid that if Chu Xia said more, Lin Wenbin would think that he was instigating it, Yuan Hui said quickly, "You go and accompany the elders. I'll be here with Chu Xia. It's just the right time for us to have a quiet chat." After a slight hesitation, Lin Wenbin patted Chu Xia on the head. "Don't think nonsense, I didn't carry it myself. Your aunt should have told you all my thoughts. You can tell Yuan Hui after that." He turned and left the room. Chu Xia sighed helplessly and looked at Yuan Hui. "Men really don't understand women. My eldest brother thinks that as long as you let nature take its course, Wei Mian will stop after you get married. Hey, Sister Hui, why, I think you'd better take some time to have a good chat with my elder brother. Otherwise, you will definitely make Wei Mian's affairs mess up to death. I absolutely have the right to say this. You have to believe me." "I understand." Yuan Hui nodded with a wry smile, "But your eldest brother may not listen to what I said. In fact, for me, I can ignore her meddling, as long as your eldest brother is firm, and then there is." After a pause, she smiled sheepishly, "As long as the Lin family doesn't hate me." "Don't worry, my aunt doesn't hate you at all. She did that just to paralyze Wei Mian." Chu Xia recounted the conversation between herself and Zhang Xinwan. Yuan Hui finally relaxed and smiled straight into her eyes. "I will definitely not let Wei Mian get what she wants, believe me." Obviously, she still didn't want to talk to Lin Wenbin about this matter, so Chu Xia had no choice but to respond to her helplessly. "Okay, you can do whatever you want. Talk to me when you want me to help." Yes, Yuan Hui nodded, the smile on her eyebrows getting stronger and stronger. "Thank you, little junior sister." Chu Xia looked embarrassed. "You're welcome, I can't help you with anything." "It helped. If it weren't for you, how could you have solved the confusion in my heart?" Yuan Hui took her hand and looked at her sincerely. "For me, this is the most important point in whether I can persist. Senior sister is such a good girl, how could my uncle not like her?" Chu Xia looked at her funny. "However, the more senior sister worries about gains and losses, the happier I am for my eldest brother. He finally found the one who loves him the most and is the most suitable for him. People, a good man should be matched by a good woman. I hope." Yuan Hui sighed unconsciously. "If possible, I really hope that I am the one who loves less, but unfortunately." She shook her head and said nothing. In this regard, Chu Xia couldn't say much. Judging from the current situation, it is true that Yuan Hui loves Lin Wenbin more. I hope that time can make everything better. At around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Chu Xia returned to the Lin family with Mrs. Zhou and others. Lin Wenbin and Yuan Hui also came with them. Naturally, they had to stay at the Lin family to have dinner together. When she arrived at the Lin family, Yuan Hui obviously relaxed a lot looking at her performance. Chu Xia sighed secretly. Sure enough, the one who loved more would have a much harder time. At this moment, she was glad that when she and Zhou Mikang were together, there was basically nothing. Feelings. Otherwise, given the gap between her family background and the Zhou families, even if she comes from the 21st century, she would be a little uneasy, right? After sitting at Lin's house for a while, Lin Wenbin accompanied Yuan Hui to school to find Mr. Yuan. When they arrived in the capital, Yuan Hui had not had time to see her father. Although the day in March is still cold, the anxious grass has sprouted, and looking from a distance, it reflects a patch of green. It happened to be Sunday, and all the local students had gone home, while most of the out-of-town students were huddled in their dormitories. The entire campus was deserted. The two of them walked side by side and were silent for a long time. Lin Wenbin didn't know what to say for a moment, but Yuan Hui didn't want to ruin the atmosphere. After the two truly established their relationship, they had never walked together like this. In the army, this was not appropriate. After returning home, there were elders together. In order to prevent the elders from thinking too much, the two of them had never been in separate rooms. Therefore, this opportunity was very precious to Yuan Hui. Old Yuan was still in 401, staying in the laboratory when he had nothing to do. The old man was busy. When he saw his daughter and prospective son-in-law coming in, he just nodded and continued to work on his own. My dad is like this. It's not that he doesn't want to talk to you, Yuan Hui quickly explained for fear that Lin Wenbin would misunderstand. I know, it hasn't been a day since I met Dad. Lin Wenbin sighed slightly and looked at Yuan Hui. Am I such a narrow-minded person in your heart? No, I just don't want any unnecessary misunderstandings between us. You. Lin Wenbin looked her over and said, are you worried about something? No, Yuan Hui quickly denied. Lin Wenbin looked at her seriously. We are lovers, and we will be husband and wife in the future. Those are the closest people. If you have any concerns or difficulties, you should tell me as soon as possible, even if you always let the elders worry about it. Okay, I will. After a slight hesitation, Yuan Hui still did not tell Lin Wenbin her opinion of Wei Mian. She really couldn't figure out Lin Wenbin's true feelings for Wei Mian now, so she didn't want to taking the risk of breaking the harmony between her and Lin Wenbin. She believed that no matter what position Wei Mian held in Lin Wenbin's heart, one day she would be squeezed out of her place by her true love. Why don't you tell me now, who is Lin Wenbin? How could he not see that Yuan Hui was holding on? So he said seriously, you still don't believe me, right? No, Yuan Hui quickly denied, I really don't have any difficulties. If I have to say there is, it's just because I'm worried about Wei Mian getting involved among us, but... Biting her lip, her eyes changed. Be firm, I have confidence in myself and I have confidence in you. That's right. Lin Wenbin put his arms around her shoulders and let her lean on his chest. I like that you are willing to tell me everything. That is a feeling of trust. Well, I believe you. Yuan Hui's cheeks suddenly turned red because she found that although her father was busy with the work at hand, he would glance at them from time to time. Apparently, she was leaning on Lin Wenbin's arms. The way she looked inside was noticed by my father. Even if the relationship was already established, it would be embarrassing to say that such an intimate act was seen by an elder. However, she was particularly reluctant to leave his generous and warm chest. After struggling for a while, she simply ignored her father's prying eyes. She also secretly despised her father in her heart. She must tell her mother about this later and let her take care of herself. It's okay to educate the father and not help his daughter. How can he make a light bulb? Half an hour later, Mr. Yuan put down the tools in his hands, washed his hands and came back. He sat in front of his daughter and son-in-law and chatted for a few words. Then he asked them to leave, saying that he would go to Lin's house if he was busy for another hour. Knowing her father's temper, Yuan Hui didn't insist, so she pulled Lin Wenbin, who wanted to persuade him, let's go. No one can change my father's decision. Let's go home and treat him. Are you sure that Lin Chuxia is just a girl from an ordinary family? On the way back for a stroll, Lin Wenbin and Yuan Hui stopped in unison when these words suddenly came into their ears. It was the two girls walking behind them who said this. Yuan Hui was hesitating about what to do when she saw Lin Wenbin wink at her, hug her and look at her affectionately. Don't go home, stay here with me, okay? After being stunned for a moment, Yuan Hui understood. She suppressed her shyness and said with a blush, no, if I don't go home, my parents will break my legs. You are already 24 years old, and you should have your own life. Lin Wenbin continued, if you like me, stay with me, otherwise, you don't like me. You are so unreasonable. As the two of them were going back and forth, the two girls had already walked to the front and looked back at the two of them from time to time. This kind of bold behavior is still very rare in school, ours. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 852. Updated. When the two girls turned around, Lin Wenbin quickly let go of Yuan Hui, winked at her, took her hand and followed closely. Brother, this is. Looking at the two sketches that Lin Wenbin handed to her, Chu Xia looked confused. She didn't understand what it meant that he retreated to his room and painted as soon as he came back. He couldn't show off his painting skills to himself. Do you know these two girls? Lin Wenbin asked. Hearing what he said, Chu Xia stared at the sketch and looked at it for a moment, then patted her forehead. The one with the long face is called Zhangajin, and he shares a dormitory with Xinlai. I have some impressions of the one with the square face, but I can't name him. After a pause, she looked at Lin Wenbin. Did brother hear the bad things they said about me? My sister is so smart. Lin Wenbin smiled and nodded. I hit the point right away. When Yuan Hui and I were walking back, we happened to hear them mention your name, so we deliberately stayed behind them and listened. The one whose name you don't know lets the one whose name you know just bully Li Xinlai. The purpose is to provoke you to help Li Xinlai stand up and beat you up. When talking about the latter part, Lin Wenbin's face completely darkened. Originally, according to his wishes, he wanted to handle the matter secretly, but it was Yuan Hui who held him back and asked him to tell Chu Xia and let Chu Xia handle it by herself. Thinking about it, what Yuan Hui said makes sense. This kind of thing will not happen less in the future. He helped deal with it this time. What if he is not here next time the little cousin meets her? Rather than letting his little cousin get hurt in the future, it would be better to remind her now. Seeing her methods, he can have some confidence in his heart. Although he has an omnipotent brother-in-law, water from afar cannot quench the thirst of the near, and there is absolutely no big deal in being careful. Wrong. What I'm interested in now is who ordered this familiar sister. I'm very sure I've seen her, but I've never interacted with her, so the possibility of having any grudge against her is almost zero. After thinking for a while, Chu Xia shook her head. Forget it, I don't want to think about it anymore. I'll go to school tomorrow and ask a few of them. They should be able to recognize her. As for Zhangajin, she'd better seek happiness for herself. She keeps bullying Li Xinlai. Does she really think Li Xinlai is a pustule? It is estimated that it is not far from the explosion point. With Li Xinlai's ability, she doesn't need my help, she has just been used to it since she was a child. A sneer appeared on Chu Xia's lips. This Zhangajin took herself too seriously. Last time, while Li Xinlai was away, she poured water on Li Xinlai. Li Xinlai endured it, and she really thought that Li Xinlai was a master who could be bullied, haha. She is really looking forward to seeing Zhangajin's deflated appearance. She will definitely understand that people should not be judged by their appearance. If you find out who is the instigator, what are you going to do? Lin Wenbin asked. Well. Chu Xia spread her hands. I don't know what to do now, because I don't know the reason why the other party is dealing with me. Only when I know it can I make a decision. Brother, don't worry, I won't let myself the one who suffers. She was absolutely telling the truth. Coming from the 21st century, her education since she was a child determined that she was not a person who could swallow her anger at all. Although she often reminds herself that times are different and she can't go too far, when things happen to her, she still won't tolerate it like people who have been educated in this era since childhood. Sometimes, she would be grateful for her good luck. If she hadn't met such a good parent, if she hadn't met Zhou Mixang, then her life in this era would have been a tragedy. Even though Chu Xia said so confidently, Lin Wenbin still looked at her with some worry. Xia, remember, you must not be merciful to those who hurt you, otherwise, you will regret it one day. Brother, you are so wordy. Chusia looked at him funny, her eyebrows full of emotion. If she wasn't a close relative, how could she say such things? But being able to say this in front of Yuan Hui shows that the eldest brother really regards Yuan Hui as one of his family members. Well, this is a good sign. Thinking of this, the smile on her lips deepened a little, and she looked at Yuan Hui. Hui winked playfully. Yuan Hui was not stupid. After just a moment of confusion, she understood what she meant. She blushed unconsciously and looked at Lin Wenbin with softer eyes. Chu Xia's wish to see Zhang Gejin in embarrassment came true early the next morning. Or maybe the girl gave Zhang Gejin too much medicine, so that she was too confident and started to find trouble with Li Xinlai early in the morning. She repeated the same trick and poured a basin of water on Li Xinlai's bed. She had really reached her limit of endurance. Li Xinlai came back from washing her face, looked at the wet patch on the bed, and looked at Zhang Gejin without saying a word. What are you looking at me doing? Zhang Gejin looked provocative. I brought water to bed and accidentally spilled it on your bed. I didn't mean it. Just take it out to dry in the sun in case someone misunderstands that you wet the bed in the middle of the night. You can explain it to them. Li Xinlai stared at her for a while, then turned around and went out with the wash basin. Zhang Gejin curled her lips and snorted, you look like a mourner, disgusting. Really unable to stand it, Zhang Gaikan frowned and said, Zhang Gejin, we are all classmates and roommates. What you are doing is outrageous. I really sprinkled it accidentally, and I didn't do it on purpose. Zhang Gejin told lies with her eyes open. You poured a basin of water on it and thought we were all blind. Zhang Gaikan looked at the other roommates, did you all see it? Yes, Zhang Fenying, who originally didn't want to come forward, saw Zhang Gaikan say this, so she naturally wanted to support her good friend, so she was the first to agree. Wu Qing and Zhao Xiaohong were both combing their hair. They only moved their hands for a moment before continuing. Niu Aijhan, the most honest person, blushed and finally lowered her head. There was also a roommate named Chu Wenting who was not here, so Zhang Fenying was the only one in the entire dormitory who expressed support for Zhang Gaikan's actions. Seeing the anger on Zhang Gaikan's face, Zhang Fenying quickly gave her a little tug and whispered, Xinlai doesn't care about herself, so what's the use of being so prominent? The key is her own attitude, understand? Hey, with a heavy sigh, Zhang Gaikan felt a little resentful that iron could not become steel. Yes, the victim herself didn't care, and no outsider could make the decision for her. Besides, Li Xinlai has quite a few good friends. Compared with those few, she is still inferior. No one has stood up for Li Xinlai, so who is she? Thinking like this, Zhang Gaikan was too lazy to get involved in the affairs between the two of them. She turned around and sat back on her bed, took out the box containing the cream and applied it on her face. As a result, as soon as the cream was applied to her face and before she could rub it away with her hands, she saw Li Xinlai holding a basin full of water and splashing it on Zhang Gejin. She snorted coldly, I won't pour it on your bed. I don't want to injure others. If you dare to mess with me again, I will carry you to the pool and drown you to death. The girl who had always been gentle and obedient suddenly seemed like a different person. Zhang Gejin just stood there in a daze. Well, there was a certain reason why she was a little confused by the water. In short, by the time she came to her senses, Li Xinlai had already packed her school bag and was about to go out. You shameless little whore, howling, Zhang Gejin threw herself at Li Xinlai, with a look in her eyes that made her want to eat Li Xinlai alive. Crack! 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 The room fell into a deathly silence. Really, this scene was beyond everyone's expectations. Zhang Gejin, who pounced on Li Xinlai, not only did not take advantage of her, but was slapped 3 times by the other party. This is simply, my wife is incredible. Her face was so painful from being beaten that Jongjin fell into a state of madness. She turned around and rushed towards Lee Xinlai, cursing a series of curse words. Lee Xinlai, who was about to take a step back, simply kicked Jongjin in the stomach and bullied her. Taking a step forward, grabbing her arms and twisting them back, Jongjin was completely controlled by Lee Xinlai. If you don't want to make things worse for yourself, just give me a break. After a pause, Lee Xinlai continued, if you want to report to the school, go now. I will never stop you. At this time, Chu Xia opened the door and walked in. Because she was worried about Lee Xinlai, she rushed to the girls' dormitory early in the morning accompanied by Yuan Hui, hoping to inform Lee Xinlai of Jongjin's plan earlier so that she would not suffer a loss. But I didn't expect to see such a wonderful scene. Her clothes were soaked, her hair stuck to her face, and her face was purple. I don't know whether it was from the cold or from anger. Lee Xinlai's hands were firmly grasped behind her, but Lee Xinlai, on the other hand, looked refreshed than usual. All must be spirited. If she hadn't tried hard to control it, Chu Xia would have laughed out loud. Yuan Hui, who accompanied her, also had a look of shock on her face. Although Chu Xia had given her a vaccination, such a quiet and beautiful girl had done so. This kind of action still made her feel like she couldn't look straight. The moment she saw Chu Xia, the frost on Lee Xinlai's face immediately disappeared, and she smiled shyly, why are you here so early? I plan to go find you soon, but... She lowered her chin to the already frozen Jongjin, who was trembling with anger without knowing it, clicked, she was delayed. Jongjin was already angry, but she became even more angry when she saw Chu Xia. She took this job because she wanted to earn more benefits for herself, but she didn't expect that she didn't get any benefits and was humiliated at her grandma's house. The key is that the other party said that if she didn't take the opportunity to hurt Lin Chuxia, she would not be given any benefits. When she bullied Lee Xinlai before, Lin Chuxia always looked very angry, so she thought, as long as she adds more fire, Lin Chuxia will definitely be tempted to take action. This benefit is quite good. Who would have thought that the first fire would fall before it started to burn, ours. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 853. If she was in trouble like this, she would never be willing to accept it. Jongjin suddenly ran towards the door quickly. Even if she knocked Lin Chuxia out, she was not afraid. Then she said that she was worried that Lee Xinlai and Lin Chuxia would bully her, so she just wanted to escape. Lee Xinlai didn't catch her, and shouted anxiously to Chu Xia, quick, get out of the way. When she finished speaking, she saw Jongjin lying straight at the door, her head just pressed against Chu Xia's. On feet. Not to mention others, even Chu Xia was shocked. She had already been on guard against Jongjin. Therefore, the moment the opponent started, she dodged to the side, just thinking of making way for the opponent, but instead I didn't expect it would be like this. Are you okay? Lee Xinlai took a few steps to Chu Xia, looked her up and down, pulled her up and walked downstairs. In the future, don't go to crowded places, it's too dangerous. Stop. At this moment, Jongjin had come to her senses, got up and shouted at the backs of the two of them, you are too despicable. You have hurt someone and you still want to run away? It's not that easy. Chu Xia turned around and glanced at her coldly, what do you want? Tell me. Jongjin sucked in the cold air, rolled up her trouser legs, and pointed at a bruise on her calf, are you too cruel? You deserve it. Chu Xia curled her lips, if you didn't want to knock me down, would you have thrown yourself like that? Nonsense, Jongjin frowned and glared at her, I didn't throw this. It was you who used secret tricks to injure me. Is it you, or you? She dangled her fingers between Chuxia and Li Xinlai. How dare you? Why don't you have the guts to admit it? We both stood honestly, even if we wanted to hurt you. Chuxia spread her hands. It's true that you have more ambition than strength. I said you didn't lose your mind. Why did you start talking nonsense? You don't need anyone to come over, just throw a stone at my leg. Zhangajin pointed at the two of them. Just wait, I will find evidence for you and tell you, if you dare to leave like this, I will definitely make this thing known to everyone. Even if I can't learn from it, I will have two people to back me up. Whatever. Chuxia turned around and pulled Li Xinlai to continue walking down. Ren Zhangajin yelled and cursed from behind and ignored her. I also think her fall was a bit strange. According to the inertia, the most she could do was rush out and hit the wall, and the threshold didn't trip her. Why do you think she fell so well? Li Xinlai pointed at Chuxia. The face of his feet, especially if it's pressed right here. Do you feel something's wrong? Of course something is wrong. Chuxia smiled and said. Lowering his voice, he said, but if I don't do this, how can I attract people who want to see my joke? You mean, someone ordered her? Certainly. Li Xinlai looked confused. What's the benefit of instructing her to deal with me? The fundamental purpose of luring me out by dealing with you is of course to make my life uncomfortable. Chuxia looked at her apologetically. I'm sorry. I have caused you trouble. What's the matter? Li Xinlai waved her hand. Since I met you, the grievances I have suffered have been very few. Compared with before, I am so happy now. Correct. There is something I want to tell you. At this point, she blushed unconsciously. When I went to see my dad yesterday, I met Zhang Ji. Chuxia looked at her eagerly. What then? We had a few words. After waiting for a long time, no further sound was heard. Chuxia coughed lightly. Is this the end? What else? What else? Li Xinlai's face turned red. I was the only one who took the initiative to say hello to him. Didn't you say you wanted to tell him what you were thinking? Chuxia looked helpless. You said this yourself. Why did you back down again when things came to a close? Li Xinlai bit her lip with a tangled look on her face. I can't say anything. Okay, I thought you were very brave, but what you did today was great. Chuxia gave her a thumbs up. I thought you would resist, but I didn't expect you would resist in such a powerful way. It's great. I was also forced to panic. I endured the last time I was wedded. If I endure it again this time, she will probably slap me directly next time. I didn't eat or drink from her. I didn't do anything sorry for her, so why should I be angry with her? Li Xinlai snorted coldly as she spoke. I just don't want to cause trouble, and I'm not really a wimp. He. Chuxia looked her up and down. Your skills are really beyond my expectation. Isn't that just because of you? Li Xinlai waved her hands and feet, looking happy. I didn't expect that I could practice so well in such a short time. Let me tell you, when I kicked her, I felt so good. It was the first time I hit someone like this in my life. By the way, have you ever hit someone like this? No. Chuxia shook her head, with a look of regret on her face. No matter she was in that era or in this era, she had never had the opportunity to experience such an addiction. Well, her idea was wrong. Be a good, peace-loving child. You must give it a try if you have the chance. The feeling. After thinking about it, Li Xinlai sighed. It's really beyond words. If anyone angers me in the future, I'll deal with him like this. Wow, he actually raised a quasi-violent woman. Chuxia really didn't know what to say. Don't worry, I won't bully people casually. The premise for me to beat people is that the bullied person will not take action until he can't bear it anymore. But Li Xinlai smiled sheepishly. From now on, my level of tolerance will be limited. The standards should be lower than before. Well, the result is still the same, but it doesn't seem to be a bad thing. It is better than being bullied. Thinking of this, Josei put on a smile on his face. Congratulations on your successful upgrade. Li Xinlai was stunned for a moment, then she realized what she was doing and smiled and touched her head. I think that only by becoming stronger can my father live a good life. After my mother came to make a scene, she didn't really give up. No matter what happened, she would still go to my dad's factory to stir things up. If it weren't for your help, my dad would have lost his job long ago. I know that now I am my father's spiritual support, so I must make myself stronger, otherwise, one day, he will still be bullied by my mother. You will become your father's pride and reliance. After a pause, Josei said, judging from your current transformation, you will definitely realize your wish. Josei, thank you for encouraging me. Let's stop being polite. Josei pulled Li Xinlai to speed up her pace. The dean is in front, hurry up, let's go after him. What are you doing? Li Xinlai was in a daze. We are not evil people, but we still have to file a complaint first. Li Xinlai. Zhang Gejin's leg injury was serious. She originally planned to go to the dean first, but after walking a few steps, her leg hurt too much. She was afraid that she had broken a bone, so she went to the infirmary first. It turned out that her worries were unnecessary. She only suffered some soft tissue injuries. The doctor prescribed some medicine to remove blood stasis and asked her to rub it on the bruised area every 4 hours before sending her away. Walk. Drcao, my leg hurts so much that I dare not walk. Are you really sure the bone is fine? Of course, sitting opposite her was a female doctor in her 30s. He glanced at her and said calmly, you look like you are a little unhappy because your injury is minor. No, no, Zhang Gejin waved her hands repeatedly, I just feel it's too painful. I'm afraid of the sequelae. I don't have a partner yet. If my leg becomes lame, my whole life will be ruined. The female doctor waved her hand, you are thinking a little too much, don't worry, unless you deliberately interrupt it now, it will not be lame. Then. Zhang Gejin looked at her with a flattering look on her face, then can you help me provide a certificate, write down the actual situation of my injury, and stamp it. This injury does not require leave. I'm not asking for leave. After hesitating, Zhang Gejin told the truth, someone pushed me down on purpose. I want to fight for the rights I deserve. Dr. Cao, you look like a good person at first sight. Please help me, okay? In that case, I will write you a copy according to the truth. The doctor had to cooperate with the injured person's request, so the female doctor came down, picked up a pen, wrote a long paragraph, signed her name and handed it to Zhang Gejin. Zhang Gejin took a few glances, quickly thanked Drcao, and left happily holding the certificate. These students. Drcao shook his head and looked at someone sitting silently aside, how could you do such messy things at that time? You had to write a certificate to get it back even if you pushed it. You are not a child anymore. Can you do it? We are classmates after all, right? Yeah. Yuan Hui looked at her with a smile, if I told you that she fell by herself, would you regret the favor you just helped her? Drcao frowned, what's going on? How did you know? Why didn't you tell me just now? Tell me about you, hey. Which sentence do you want me to answer in this long list of words? Seeing the other person's tendency to change his face, Yuan Hui quickly smiled flatteringly, senior sister, I will answer your questions one by one now. I know because the girl she wants to bully is my junior sister. Of course, I didn't hear what my junior sister said. I learned about it when I wanted to find her after I went to my dad's place. I still don't know what's going on, but I can tell you with certainty that the guy who just came here 100% stole the chicken and lost the rice. As for not telling you just now, I didn't want to attract her attention, so that next time I want to inquire about information, I can do it quietly. Is my answer satisfactory to you, senior sister? Not satisfied, Cao Ying rolled her eyes at her. I have the impression that you don't like to get involved in things. Also, who is your junior sister? You need to protect her like this. To be continued. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 854. Chapter 826. Senior sister, if you meet my junior sister, you will definitely like her. Yuan Hui said while pointing to a group photo on Cao Ying's desk. There is one more thing I have to tell senior sister, your favorite this is my fiancé's aunt, and the junior sister is her niece, and she looks very much like her. After being stunned for a while, Cao Ying looked at her speechlessly. Is it necessary to go through such trouble? By the way, when did you have a fiancé? You really kept it a secret. Yuan Hui's cheeks flushed. It's not that I want to hide it from senior sister, but the main reason is that our relationship has been confirmed for less than a month. I'm afraid that if we break up after we break up, senior sister will be happy for me in vain. Cao Ying looked serious. Have you met your parents? Yes, Yuan Hui nodded. It's not bad. Their family members are very kind, and they don't dislike our family's poor background. They even specifically mentioned that he should honor my parents with me and provide for them in their old age. It's really the best thing for you to wait for. Cao Ying looked her up and down, smiled and shook his head. Why didn't I see that you are so lucky before? I was born with good fortune, but my senior sister always doesn't believe me. Yuan Hui raised her eyebrows. Now do you think it's wise for me not to be a couple with your brother-in-law? What's wrong with my brother-in-law? Cao Ying rolled her eyes at her. I just complimented you for a few words and then he slapped you on the nose. Hey, I don't understand. Suqiao is so good, why can't he be so popular with you? How is he? Yuan Hui widened her eyes exaggeratedly. As for your brother-in-law, his temper is as bad as that of a firecracker. Can you imagine the situation when the two of us are together? It would definitely be like a spark hitting the earth, causing a big disaster. It's not as exaggerated as you said. Cao Ying smiled helplessly. However, his temper is a bit hasty, but he is kind-hearted. This man has a kind heart and knows that it is important to love his wife. Sister, don't worry, Wenbin will love me very much. Hey, you're protecting him now. Cao Ying looked at her jokingly. You're protecting him like this now. Are the teacher and the teacher's wife feeling uncomfortable? You feel that your daughter's pain is in vain. My parents are not as petty as you. They want me to quickly find someone to marry, so why would they be picky? To tell you the truth, if my father hadn't asked my junior sister to help, Lin Wenbin and I would have wanted to leave. It's basically impossible to get together, so your worries are definitely unnecessary. Is the relationship between your fiancé and your cousin so good? Cao Ying looked at her in surprise. As a cousin, you can actually affect your cousin's relationship choices. I said, your fiancé will not have a crush. Fetish. Senior sister. Yuan Hui was speechless. This person was not a psychiatrist, so why was he so suspicious? Cao Ying regretted the words and quickly smoothed things over. Okay, I used the wrong word. What I meant is that your fiancé and your cousin have such a good relationship. What is your cousin's personality like? Will it affect you in the future? Your relationship as a couple? No, junior sister has a very straightforward personality. Otherwise, how could we get along? Yuan Hui sighed. There is no reason why Wenbin is particularly close to junior sister. He has a biological sister who has not been with him since he was young. And he has a very good relationship with his sister, so it can be considered a transfer of affection towards his junior sister. That's okay. Cao Ying breathed a long sigh of relief. I was shocked. Don't want to hear it when I tell you. There are some men who fall in love with their cousins, not to mention those who are far away. She glanced towards the door. He glanced at her and said in a low voice, the son of Dr. Wang from the ophthalmology department next door has fallen in love with his cousin and wants to be with her at all costs. Dr. Wang is almost worried to death. Don't worry, Wenbin doesn't treat Chuxia like that. He really loves his sister and sometimes gets jealous of his brother-in-law, but the purpose is still for his sister's good. To be honest, sometimes I envy my junior sister for having such good parents. She has such a good husband, such a wonderful in-laws, a cousin who loves her so much, and a group of friends with whom she has a very good relationship. Hey, apart from her parents, I can't compare with her. It seems that none of us have caught your eye. Cao Ying pouted, I'm going to talk to Xenia later. It's better not to talk about you in the future. If you do, it will be in vain. That's not what I meant. Yuan Hui hurriedly explained, of course you are my good friends. What I mean is that we only meet a few times a year. Unlike the junior sisters and others, we can meet every day. Together. When she graduates, won't she be just like you? That's true. Yuan Hui smiled sheepishly, maybe it's because I'm about to have my period. I find that I'm particularly sentimental. Senior sister, I won't disturb you anymore. I'll come over after you get off work. By the way, can you and your brother-in-law take a day off? Let's go out to have a meal together in the evening. I'll go find Xenia now and ask her to take a day off too. How about that? Okay. Cao Ying nodded happily, there is no problem on my side, but the key is Xenia's side. Song Kaibo is so glued to her that he doesn't even want to separate. They have been married for 3 years, and their relationship is still so good. Yuan Hui couldn't help but click her tongue, how enviable. Cao Ying laughed, if you surround yourself with a few people who have a crush on you, your fiancé will be like Song Kaibo and won't want to leave you. Oh, I didn't expect that guy is still so charming now. Yuan Hui said with a funny face, then I will just watch for a while to avoid being teased by her all the time. This time it is my turn to become a serf and become the master. You all turned over and pushed me down. Alas. Cao Ying sighed and shook her head, I am just an old woman at home now. Everyone, old, young, middle-aged, is waiting for me with their mouths open. Look at me. This face is obviously 2 years older than you, but it looks like it's 10 years older. This is what happens when you marry the wrong person. Be careful, brother-in-law, I'll deal with you if I hear this. Yuan Hui blinked at her and ran out. She didn't take Cao Ying's words seriously at all. At that time, Luiguo chased Cao Ying for a whole year. After he caught Cao Ying, he absolutely regarded Cao Ying as a treasure. At first, they were also worried that he would change after getting married. However, Luiguo proved to them what a model husband is like with his practical actions. Anyway, every time they go to Cao Ying's house, Luiguo cooks the food, washes the clothes, and even takes care of the children. Such a man, will it change? This thought only flashed through her mind and was completely denied by her. However, she was not without doubts in her heart. Cao Ying did show her age, but over the past year, it had become too serious. She seemed to have aged more than 5 years all of a sudden. Could it be possible that something had really happened to her? Already? Or, she should ask Xiao Xenia later. We used to be sisters who lived in the same dormitory. Even if we can't be together often now, this friendship will never change, and the care and concern will naturally not change. Senior sister, what are you thinking about? The moment her arm was pulled, Yuan Hui came back to her senses and smiled at Chuxia, who was looking at her curiously. I went to see my senior sister, and I was thinking about our past. Oh. Chuxia looked at her again, senior sister, Are you okay? Yuan Hui shook her head. Of course it's okay. By the way, the one named Zhangajin just went to see my senior sister to see if she was injured. From the look of her, she wanted to hold you tight and pay more attention to her. Don't worry, I've given her eye drops. If she can, she'll complain. Chu Xia smiled with crooked eyebrows. I guess she's so angry right now that she has nowhere to swallow. In fact, Zhangajin was so miserable that she wanted to kill someone with a knife. I went to the Dean of Education with the certificate and elaborated on it. I fully expected that the Dean would immediately call Lin Chuxia over to reprimand him and give him a punishment. Unexpectedly, after seeing her certificate, the Dean just looked at her lightly and said that students should be united and friendly. Such small actions would damage the school's atmosphere. He also warned her that if she did something like this again, the school would consider actual punishment, such as expulsion. She is obviously the victim, okay. She is obviously the one who is injured, okay. Why was she the one who was warned? In fact, the Dean made it clear that there was no need to talk to Lin Chuxia, because he had already understood everything and Lin Chuxia was definitely not at fault. Does this mean that she is absolutely at fault? She couldn't figure it out and wasn't convinced, but looking at the Dean's face, how could she dare to say anything more? He could only suppress the anger that rose to the top of his head and retreat with dignity. It was really a narrow road for enemies. Halfway there, she unexpectedly met Lin Chuxia and Li Xinlai again. At the same time, there was also the woman she saw when she went to the school infirmary to get a certificate. With a thought in her heart, Zhangajin came over and said, Lin Chuxia, if you have the ability to fight me with your own abilities, what kind of hero can you be if you rely on your family connections to complain first? Looking her up and down with a smile, Chu Xia smiled and said, have you been scolded? Are you not convinced? So what? Are you allowed to complain yourself but not allow others to explain? You won't be able to deal with whoever stirs up trouble first. Are you clear? You still dare to question me so confidently, please, don't think that everyone else is a fool, okay? How did you explain? I don't need to tell you this, I don't have the spare time. Chu Xia curled her lips at her, it's not me you should be looking for now, it's the person who ordered you to do this that you are looking for. She knew clearly that what you did was wrong and that you would suffer a loss by doing this, but she still lied to you to deal with me. What do you think she had in mind? If she has the ability, why doesn't she come forward? If you really drop out of school, haha. It's useless for me to sow discord. I won't be fooled by you. Am I sowing discord? Shaking her head, Chu Xia looked at Li Xinlai, do you think I am sowing discord? If someone wants to take the blame for someone else, just do it. Don't worry about it. Li Xinlai pulled her forward, go to the classroom quickly. It's so cold outside that your feet will freeze. Watching the group of people drifting away, Zhangajin bit her lip and walked towards the dormitory. Behind her, two girls were spotted in the distance. Chu Xia, who had already walked far away, looked back at the two tails on the back and couldn't help but be speechless. She didn't know how Zhou Mikang found them. The truth about these two people was really hard to find in a crowd. That kind of thing. If they hadn't appeared in her sight too frequently, she wouldn't have been sure that these were two of them. They were both in the same class as her. They were usually taciturn and would definitely be ignored. She also believed that the skills of these two people were definitely inversely proportional to their looks. The black spots on Zhangajin's legs showed this. In fact, she had a wide view when she was standing by the door, but she didn't notice how they were doing it. Take action. There are so many hidden weapon masters who are like legends in the world. Although finding a husband like Master Tongzi will make you jealous and coveted, it will also give you the opportunity to see various aspects that ordinary people cannot have access to. In this way, it seems to be more profitable. As soon as Chu Xia and Li Xinlai entered the classroom door, they were pushed out by several dark figures. "You guys are so excited, what are you planning to do?" Lin Mengran glared at her dissatisfied. "You have the nerve to say that, do you think we are good friends? We live in the dormitory next door, why don't you call us? It's already irritating enough. If I call you again, it will be even more irritating." Chu Xia spread her hands. "Do you want me to be surrounded by all kinds of monsters and monsters all the time?" "Who is it this time?" Yang Xiaoli asked. "I don't know yet, but the results will be known soon." Chu Xia smiled comfortingly at a few people. "Believe me, if I realize the danger, I will definitely call you for help. It's cold outside, go back to the classroom." "Okay. Forget it, considering that you are a pregnant woman, I will spare you this time. If you do this again next time, we will be really angry." Lin Mengran snorted coldly and said, "After all, we are comrades and friends. It's outrageous for you to do this after passing the exam from the same place." "Okay, what Chu Xia said is right. If she had called us out again, the impact of the matter would have been too great." Wu Jingbo quickly smoothed things over. "For now, Chu Xia is already the most jealous among girls. Some people are really crazy." "What do you mean they are jealous? Could it be that jealousy can make them stand out?" Lin Mengran puffed her cheeks and entered the classroom, and happened to meet Zhou Jiang's eyes with an expression on her face. It suddenly softened. Sitting in the same row as Zhou Jiang, Lin Menjai, who was only separated by one person, certainly noticed the change in her expression, and the corners of her lips curled up in a sarcastic manner. She was really overestimating her abilities. Even she, Lin Menjai, couldn't accept it. How could she accept Lin Mengran, who was inferior to her in everything? Unless Zhou Jiang is blind. She had observed during this period that Zhou Jiang was indifferent to everyone in the class, which made her feel a lot more at ease. At the very least, no one had caught Zhou Jiang's eyes. As for Lin Chuxia, who had the most frequent contacts with Zhou Jiang, she was already married and had a wife, so she was no longer worried. Therefore, after being rejected at first and feeling depressed, she was now particularly patient and waiting. She believed that with her excellence, Zhou Jiang would accept her one day. Of course, she had to settle this matter before the new students entered school. Otherwise, it would not be possible when the schoolgirls came. To be honest, these days, she has taken a look at all the girls in several classes. In terms of appearance, Lin Chuxia and Li Xinlai are the most outstanding. Whether she admits it or not, she must admit that these two people are higher than her in appearance. But other than that, no one can compare to her. As for these two, one is married and the other has such low self-esteem, it is not something she should worry about. Although the veil between a woman chasing a man has failed in her case, she believes that the relationship between her and Zhou Jiang will not be as difficult as that between a man chasing a woman. Chu Xia, who had already sat down, lowered her voice and asked Lin Mengran, "Hey, when do you plan to let Lin Menjai wake up from his fantasy? Let's wait for a while, until our relationship is stable." When it came to this matter, Lin Mengran obviously changed as a person, and his words became softer and softer. Yang Xiaoli shivered unconsciously. "It feels so numb." "It's far worse than you." Lin Mengran exposed her shortcomings. "Who speaks directly at the throat when talking on the phone? Ouch, yo." She shuddered exaggeratedly. "Compared to you, am I nothing?" Yang Xiaoli glared at her, and just as she was about to retaliate, she saw Mr. Yuan wandering in with a textbook under his arm, which scared her into silence. He looked down seriously and said, "Put the books away for the exam." Rs. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 855. Chapter 826. As soon as the morning class ended, Chu Xia rushed home anxiously. She believed that the two people had found out who was instigating Jongjin and had not contacted her. They probably did not want to expose their relationship with her. So, if she wants to know the answer, she must pass the teacher's test. "Mom, did Jo Mixang call me?" Chu Xia asked anxiously as soon as she entered the door. "No," Zhao Yulan looked at her worriedly. "Did something happen?" Lin Baohe and Wan Lao also turned their attention to Chu Xia, their eyebrows full of worry. "No, no, no," Chu Xia hurriedly explained, "I asked him to help check something. I guess there should be results." Just as she was talking, the phone rang. She ran over to pick it up and looked at it. Zhao Yulan's heart was aching. Why was this child so careless? It's not even 3 months yet. Are you always so careless at school? With this thought in her mind, she didn't hear what Chu Xia said clearly. After she hung up the phone, she came back to her senses and asked, "How was it?" Found it seeing the nervousness on Zhao Yulan's face, Chu Xia quickly comforted her, "Mom, don't worry, someone is bullying Xinlai, I asked him to help check it out. I'm not worried about this." Zhao Yulan frowned, "Xia, you are weak, so you have to be careful. You must not run or jump, you know? It's a lot of words." I know. Chu Xia nodded repeatedly. "Aren't you anxious just now?" "I forgot about it. Mom, I usually pay special attention to it. If you don't believe it." She pointed at Li Xinlai, who had always been as invisible as air. "If you don't believe me, ask Xin. Li, she never lies. Mom can definitely believe what she says, right? There are quite a few words." Seeing Zhao Yulan looking at her, Li Xinlai quickly said, "Auntie. What Chu Xia said is true. She was quite careful when she was in school. Moreover, how can we, the rest of us, allow her to run or jump when we are together with her? Just rest assured, we are not incompetent. Xiao Li, are you okay?" There are many words. Zhao Yulan looked up and down at Li Xinlai and asked with a worried look. Although the question was a bit haphazard, Li Xinlai knew what she was asking and said quickly, "Aunt, I'm fine. That person bullied me and I punished him. She suffered a loss, but I didn't suffer any loss at all. Chu Xia was afraid that I would be penalized by the school, so she asked Mr. Zhou to help." As she said that, she bowed deeply to everyone. "I'm really sorry, it was all my fault, and the elders were also worried." Zhao Yulan rubbed her head lovingly. "You kid, why are you so polite? This action. No one had ever done this to her." Tears flowed down uncontrollably. Both Chu Xia and Zhao Yulan were shocked by her appearance. "Xinlai. What's wrong with you?" Chu Xia asked slightly cautiously, according to her words to Li Xinlai. "Understand and make such a move. It shows that she feels extremely wronged, but she couldn't figure out the source of her grievance. I'm so touched." Li Xinlai smiled sheepishly with tears still hanging on her face. "It's this action by my aunt that makes me feel so close and loved. This is a feeling I've never felt before." "Do you like this action?" Chu Xia smiled and reached out to touch her head. "It's hard to say. From now on, we will do this action to you every day and make you moved every day. How about it? You kid." Zhao Yulan pushed her daughter away and glared at her. "It's no time to joke." Xiaoli's eyes are still red. As she said this, she put her arm around Li Xinlai's shoulders and walked to the dining table. "Let's eat and ignore her." Then he turned back to greet Wan Lao and Lin Baohe. "Uncle, Baohe, it's time to eat." Chu Xia Tongzi, who was disliked, deliberately sighed with a bitter look on his face. "Since mother doesn't want to see me so much, then I won't eat." So as not to make mother look upset as he said this, he walked towards his house. I saw but secretly glanced at my mother, and found that she didn't like her at all, and didn't even look at her. Okay, I had a little too much fun. With a shy face, someone walked to the table and sat down. He smiled flatteringly at Zhao Yulan. Mom, are you really angry with me? How can I be willing to? Zhao Yulan smiled and held her daughter in her arms. It's too late for me to love you, so how can I be willing to be angry with you? I just want to see your current temperament. Xia, what makes mother and your father happy is that your personality has become more and more generous now and you don't get into trouble. If mother did this before, you would definitely leave in shame. Seeing you like this, mother and your father are very relieved. Even if one day we are no longer with you, you will definitely handle things very well. Chu Xia was stunned. Where are you planning to go? Hey, sighing, Zhao Yulan looked at her daughter. Your grandpa is not in good health. Your father and I have to go back and have a look. I'm really worried about leaving you here, but if it weren't for a critical situation, my uncle can't send me an urgent telegram. Mom doesn't want to regret it for the rest of her life. Xia, I've already called your mother-in-law. She will hurry up and come over. When she arrives, your father and I will go back as soon as possible. This news is so unexpected. In early summer, she felt her heart sinking. In this era, before she met Zhou Mixang, the people who loved her the most were her parents and grandparents. Such an open-minded old man, who looked so healthy, how could he suddenly become ill? Okay. Yes, with my uncle's character, it would be impossible to send an urgent telegram to my mother unless it was extremely urgent, especially knowing her current condition. So, how serious is my grandpa's health? Mom, did you tell my mother-in-law the reason? Zhao Yulan nodded. As I said, your mother-in-law said that she would arrange for someone to go to your grandfather's place to have a look first and understand the situation before making next arrangements. That's good. Chu Xia breathed a sigh of relief. With the energy of the Zhou family, as long as grandpa is not in a particularly serious condition, there will be no problem. However, she looked at Zhao Yulan. Mom, you and Dad hurry up. After dinner, ask Uncle Wang to take you to the train station. If you have express tickets, you can take the train back. If not. She looked at Wang Zhongliang. Please ask Uncle Wang to take my parents back. Wang Zhongliang quickly promised, don't worry, I will definitely handle this matter. Because she had told her not to call her young mistress when she brought her classmates back, just call her by her name, but how dare Wang Zhongliang dare, so the way she spoke became like this. Xia, you. Zhao Yulan looked confused. She was really anxious to go home, but her daughter's current situation was special and it was really difficult for her to make a decision. Chu Xia looked at her firmly. Mom, I'm fine. If you don't want me to regret it for the rest of my life, you and Dad just listen to me. Seeing that his wife was still hesitating, Lin Bao he made a final decision. Yulan, Xia is not the same Xia as before. She has more opinions than the two of us, and there are so many good friends around her. Don't worry, let's eat and go back quickly, so that we can really it makes the children feel at ease. Yes, Zhao Yulan responded, but looking at the food on the table, she felt that her stomach was full. She was afraid that her daughter would worry if she didn't eat, so she forced herself to swallow. Father, Mother, why don't you bring some food to eat on the way? My mother didn't look like she was eating, she was basically being tortured, Chu Xia suggested. Chu Xia did not ask to follow him to the train station. She knew that at this time, she could only make her parents feel at ease if she stayed here honestly. After sending her parents away, Chu Xia felt that the room suddenly felt a lot deserted. In addition, she was worried about her grandpa's health, and her tears fell unconsciously. Chu Xia. Looking at her appearance, Li Xinlai was a little at a loss. Wan Lao sighed helplessly and stepped forward to persuade, Xia, no matter how capable the Zhou family is, as long as it's not something that even gods can't handle, there will definitely be no problem. I know. Chu Xia nodded, with an embarrassed look on her face. I know it all, but I just feel so depressed and panicked. Qin Yingfen, who was clearing the table, answered, your low mood is related to pregnancy. You should try to think of happy things as much as possible. It will be fine. I know. Chu Xia smiled at her, just call me Chu Xia. Don't you think it's weird? I just wanted to say this when Uncle Wang said this. We will be together for a long time in the future. It's embarrassing for everyone to be so polite together, right? A lot of words. Actually. Li Xinlai's face turned red from holding back. Actually, you can still call us whatever you originally called us, otherwise, we will feel uncomfortable here. This is not my own idea, it is the way we all feel. Every time we come, Uncle Wang and Aunt Qin feel a little uncomfortable. The consequence of this is that we also feel uncomfortable. Okay. Chu Xia nodded and looked at Qin Yingfen. Aunt Qin, you can shout whatever you think is comfortable. It doesn't matter, she dared to say this because the trend has passed, and in the future, in some big families, there is nothing strange about such a title, so why should she embarrass others? Qin Yingfen breathed a long sigh of relief and looked obviously much more relaxed. Third, young madam, when you are fine, rub your hands under your two internal organs, which will make you feel better. Obviously, she told Chu Xia her choice in this way. Chu Xia was secretly amused. These two people were not slaves of the Zhou family, so why were they so particular? In fact, when they originally asked them to change their words, on the one hand, they didn't want to be called that in front of a few good friends, and on the other hand, they didn't want the couple to feel uncomfortable. It seems that she really overthought it. When Chu Xia went to class in the afternoon, Wang Zhongliang hadn't come back yet. Chu Xia knew that there was no express train. Wang Zhongliang sent her parents back, which made her feel a little more relaxed. After returning to her hometown, there was a car. Much more convenient. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 856. But Murong Tianyu's back body hadn't even touched the ground, so he moved the remaining sword back a little, and with a knife-raising gesture, he used the force of the sword to pop forward. In the blink of an eye, Murong Tianyu used his strength to push his feet to the ground, then pushed himself up several feet and threw himself at Fu Renjia in the air. Murong Tianyu had blue veins on his face and shouted loudly, Fu Renjia, if you have the guts, open my acupuncture points. I will die with you. Water splashes everywhere. Although the water dragon sword technique was powerful, Fu Renjia's previous blow had greatly reduced the power of the water dragon sword technique. Moreover, Murong Tianyu was slashing from above, giving him a huge advantage. Murong Tianyu's broken sword struck, and the water dragon was chopped into spray. Murong Tianyu's sword remained unchanged and struck Fu Renjia with 50,000 kilograms of force. Boom, the water dragon exploded, sending sand and rocks flying, and Murong Tianyu flew back. Murong Tianyu screamed violently, and struck Fu Renjia with a chopping knife move. At this time, his strength and speed doubled, exceeding the limit. Murong Tianyu's outburst this time was not so much the end of his wild nature as it was the venting of all the depression in his heart. Seeing that Fu Renjia's hand was about to touch Liang Yingxin, and seeing that the two girls were about to be humiliated, Murong Tianyu's anger reached its peak. Due to his high concentration, the Genkai sucked out of his Danshan became unprecedentedly powerful, breaking through the Yang Qiao channel and the Qi meridian in one fell swoop. Once the 8 meridians are opened, the practice of Fire Yang Kung has been completed, and the pure Yang Qi has filled the entire Danshan, making the Danshan full of Qi, reaching the level of a warrior. Murong Tianyu shouted, "Stop!" With the loud shout, his true energy suddenly broke through the sealed acupuncture points. Murong Tianyu, who had grown a foot taller, stood up with the broken knife. His muscles swelled and veins popped out. Murong Tianyu had a fishy taste in his mouth and a stream of blood spurted out. He felt much better all of a sudden. The true energy circulates freely through the meridians, seemingly full of infinite power. Fu Renjia saw Murong Tianyu's sword coming, and he quickly raised his sword to meet it. The largest rapids so far wrapped around the long sword, emitting even greater power. The swords met each other, with a loud boom sound, and the large water dragon rushed out from the tip of the sword and rushed towards Murong Tianyu's remaining sword. Fu Renjia has used this move with all his strength, with a strength of at least 30,000 kilograms. Murong Tianyu held a knife in both arms and held it against the water dragon. Although the water dragon's spray hit Murong Tianyu like a hidden weapon, Murong Tianyu's body was as hard as a monster at this time, and these sprays could not hurt his hair at all. The power of the water dragon came one after another from the long sword. Murong Tianyu could still block the water dragon with his arms, but the soil under his feet could no longer withstand such a huge impact. The water dragon dragged away from the long sword and rushed Murong Tianyu back. Murong Tianyu's feet left deep marks on the soil. Lin Jingjun cursed, "Despicable villain, kill me if you dare." Liang Ying thought to herself, "Young Master Fu, how can you, the young master of your sect, be so despicable and rude? Let us go now. We promise not to mention this matter in the future." Although Murong Tianyu broke through the 8 extraordinary meridians and filled the entire Danshan with Genkai, the meridians could not accept the increase of Genkai all at once, so it was actually extremely dangerous to break through the blocked acupuncture points with his whole body's Genkai. At this time, Murong Tianyu's meridians were damaged, and he could only hold on with his monster-like body. Fu Renjia's eyes showed immense fear. He held the sword's edge with his left hand, raised the sword with both hands, and used the sword to block the sword. The shouts of the two women were hoarse. Fu Renjia roared, and the disciples outside all ran forward to block Fu Renjia. Fu Renjia didn't know why. He knew that his strength was superior to Murong Tianyu, but he was so afraid. In fact, it is the fear of unknown creatures. At this time, Murong Tianyu's physical and mental changes were like a person transforming into a monster. Liang Yingxing cried loudly and let out a miserable scream. Fu Renjia put his hands on Lin Jingjun's white and undulating chest and gently touched her. Lin Jingjun was so angry that she almost fainted. Fu Renjia sighed, "This is such a soft virgin forbidden land. This Lin Jingjun is not only beautiful in appearance, but also has a great figure. Although the appearance of the man surnamed Liang is not as good as that of the man surnamed Lin, he is still elegant, and his figure is full of youthful vitality. But I don't know what the scene will be like in this wilderness with his clothes naked." After that, he raised his dirty hands. "Go and tear Liang Yingxin's pants off." Every step Murong Tianyu takes, there is a deep footprint left in the ground. His strength has been accumulated to the limit. Every movement contains a huge force of 10,000 kilograms. Murong Tianyu was sweating profusely at this time. How could he see the two most important women in his life being humiliated? But the true energy drawn from his danshan was not enough to break through the sealed acupuncture points. The true qi circulates in the body, and most of the true qi is always blocked in the last of the 8 extraordinary meridians, the Yang Qiao meridians. His pure Yang Qi was desperately flowing through his body, trying to avoid the flow of Qi through his meridians in order to accumulate Qi for flushing the acupuncture points. However, his danshan had not yet reached its limit. In the realm of a warrior, Qi could never be dragged away from his meridians. Murong Tianyu raised his broken sword and pointed it at Fu Renjia. Fu Renjia has also seen many big scenes. He was just too frightened just now. Now he calmed down and his whole body was entangled with bluer and bigger rapids. Murong Tianyu had returned to his original form at this time, and the severe pain in his body made his whole body tremble. He didn't know how to understand the acupuncture points, so he could only help the two girls to lie on the ground, cover their upper bodies with torn rags, and then fell to the ground, gasping for air. Ha ha ha, die together? Just see how happy the two beauties me and you are. As the two women screamed, Furenja stretched out his hand and tore the tops of the two women to pieces, and the snow-white skin appeared on the in front of them. The two women's breasts were rising and falling, which was particularly attractive. Generally speaking, the strongest instant explosive power of warriors and martial artists is only about 10,000 kilograms. This power includes the original power and the explosive power of true energy. This explosive power of true energy is the power control technique when using unique moves. However, the human body's endurance is limited. Even if it can be endured instantly, it is impossible to have unlimited endurance. A powerful martial artist like Su Shai-shen, whose strength is less than 1,000 kilograms, has an instantaneous explosive power of nearly 10,000 kilograms. Some warriors have a strength of more than 2,000 kilograms, but with great strength, their bodies are naturally bulky, and their instantaneous explosive power is naturally weakened. Some powerful people who have good opportunities and are born with supernatural power may have an instantaneous explosive power of more than 10,000 kilograms. However, due to the limitations of their body's endurance, they can only explode more than 10,000 kilograms of power. Only warriors who control martial arts with Tao can use the power of the five elements to explode with powerful power. The power of the five elements does not depend on the body but exists independently, and can exert power beyond the limit. For example, Furenja's water dragon sword technique weighs far more than 10,000 kilograms. Murongtianyu's natural strength has reached 5,000 kilograms under normal conditions, and his explosive power when performing 6 crazy sword styles has far exceeded 10,000 kilograms. At this time, his body is in a state of muscle and bone explosion, and his natural strength has reached 10,000 kilograms, and his danshin filled with true energy. He performed this cleaving style with a strong focus. This sword has a force of at least 30,000 kilograms. Only Murongtianyu's monster-like body could withstand such a huge force. Lin Jingjun was so anxious that tears were streaming down her face, but she still kept cursing. Some of the beauties fainted with fright, while others rolled away and crawled away. Hey, Furenja put away his hand and looked at the changes in Murongtianyu's body in surprise. Murongtianyu walked towards Furenja step by step, his blood-red eyes like a monster, ready to attack at any time and tear the target into pieces. Furenja shuddered and jumped back involuntarily. His instinct frightened him. He has seen all kinds of masters, but none of them is like Murongtianyu, who only has hatred and anger in his eyes, and none of them is like Murongtianyu, whose murderous aura makes people shudder. Furenja laughed loudly and said, "Murongtianyu, is this all your ability? Then Sima Qianqiu keeps praising you, it seems that it is just hypocritical." After that, he walked to Liang Yingxin and Lin Jingjun, and said with a lewd smile, "Little girl, I told you I want to see what your figure is like, can you escape?" The beauties were so frightened that their legs were weak and they were crying on Furenja's body. Furenja moved his right palm and threw one of the beauties towards Murongtianyu. The beauty screamed in surprise, and her whole body was shot towards Murongtianyu like a hidden weapon. Murongtianyu put down the remaining knife, grabbed the beauty's feet with both hands and pulled them to both sides. With a click, the beauty was immediately torn into two sides, with blood and internal organs spilled on the floor. This scene not only overwhelmed Renja, but also Liang Yingxin and Lin Jingjun, who could not move, were so frightened that they broke into cold sweats. "Let you go, don't even think about it. I want to see who of you two has a better figure." Haha, after saying that, he was about to tear off Lin Jingjun's clothes. Murongtianyu's trembling body slowly walked towards Liang Yingxin and Lin Jingjun. Liang Yingxin cried, "Brother you, is it you?" Lin Jingjun was so frightened that her face turned pale, but she saw that although Murongtianyu was covered in blood, his face was smiling, which was in sharp contrast to his appearance. She knew that Murong Tianyu was still Murong Tianyu. She turned from crying to laughing and said, "Brother Yu, you are still brother Yu, ha ha." When Liang Yingzhen heard this, she was aware of it, and she turned from crying to laughing, but tears continued to flow down in the laughter. Murong Tianyu put his feet on the ground and jumped into the crowd. He swept his remaining sword towards the crowd. The remaining sword carried strong wind, and 5 of the disciples who were unable to react suddenly had their heads dismembered. All the disciples raised their swords to stab, and Murong Tianyu swiped his sword horizontally. The huge force of 10,000 kilograms was invincible. Several long swords were knocked away one after another. The mouth of the disciple holding the sword burst open and blood flowed out. Murong Tianyu swung the sword with his right hand and his left hand was not idle. As soon as the roaring palm came out, a disciple was hit in the chest. He flew out more than 10 feet and hit a big rock. Blood spurted from his mouth and his internal organs were broken and he died. A disciple with a high martial arts skill stabbed Murong Tianyu in the chest with his long sword. Murong Tianyu dodged and grabbed the disciple's head with his left palm. With a strong force, there was a pop sound, and the disciple's head was like a melon. When all the disciples saw that Murong Tianyu's eyes were red and his left hand was still bleeding with red and white brains, they were all frightened and had no intention of fighting. They all ran away. Murong Tianyu walked towards Fu Renjia step by step. With a boom, Fu Renjia's hands could not withstand the huge force of 50,000 kilograms. Murong Tianyu pressed down on Fu Renjia with his sword. Blood sprayed everywhere, and the remaining sword pressed against the long sword, crushing Fu Renjia into pieces from head to toe. Murong Tianyu, who was in the air, did 2 somersaults and slashed at Fu Renjia with a knife in both hands. This is the most destructive breaking knife style in 6 styles of crazy sword. Used in this situation, the power of this broken knife style has reached 50,000 kilograms. Such a huge force, before the knife could hit him, the pressure of the knife already made Fu Renjia's face hurt. The frightened Fu Renjia had no time to dodge, so he could only raise the sword with both hands to block. The power of water flowed from his body to the sword, and a huge water dragon rushed towards Murong Tianyu's blade. A kind of negative oppression. What? Fu Renjia was horrified. The swords collided just now. Although the impact force was completely offset by the water dragon, the shock of the collision already made his arms ache. And Murong Tianyu, who had withstood such a huge impact force with his arms, could actually use the force to attack without adjusting. This was really beyond Fu Renjia's expectation. He didn't know that the reason why Murong Tianyu was able to exert such huge force was mainly due to the 10,000 kilograms of strength in his arms. Although the anti-shock force was strong, it still could not make Murong Tianyu's arms lose strength immediately. The remaining disciples of the Dao sect were so frightened that they crawled on the ground and fled in all directions. In just an instant, Fu Renjia had disappeared under Murong Tianyu's broken sword. There was no body left, only the bent long sword. It indicates Fu Renjia's past existence. Fu Renjia! You shameless villain! Murong Tianyu screamed desperately. His body gradually grew bigger, and he had unknowingly entered the state of muscle and bone explosion. He no longer felt the huge pain in his body. He hated himself for being too weak and unable to even protect the one he loved. The muscle and bone explosion state has reached its limit. Murong Tianyu's shirt has already burst, revealing muscles that are much stronger than usual. His spirit became more concentrated than ever due to anger and hatred. The true energy constantly collides with the Yang Qiao meridians and sealed acupuncture points. He felt the qi and blood rolling, and sometimes the qi collided with the Yang Qiao meridians, and a small amount of Genkai actually passed through. The Genkai continued to circulate from the meridians, and even a small amount of Genkai leaked out of the meridians. Murong Tianyu didn't care about these visions. He just concentrated highly and pumped all the energy from his dantian into the Yankee vein every time. With a boom, the knife hit the sole of Fu Renjia's foot. The ground underneath exploded, with pieces of meat, internal organs, and blood flying outward. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 857. Chapter 828. Zhou Nanping was not surprised when she saw Zhou Mikang. From the moment she made the decision, she had already thought of the possibility of this day. With a pale face and stubborn eyes, this expression often appeared on Zhou Nanping's face, but he didn't feel it before, but now, he hates it extremely. Team Leader Zhou. A female worker broke in. As soon as the words came out of her mouth, she saw the handsome man with a gloomy face standing opposite Zhou Nanping. She was so frightened that she quickly shut up. What's going on? Zhou Nanping asked. 2. The failure rate of Unit 2 is extremely high. I went to see Captain Wang, and he said it would be repaired in a moment. But the longer it takes, the more losses there will be. Could you please say hello to Captain Wang? The female worker said as she quietly looked at Zhou Mikang's face. He looked timid like a little mouse squatting in front of an old cat. Zhou Nanping frowned and looked at the female worker. He has a wife, you don't need to act like this in front of him. The female worker's face suddenly turned red, and she was speechless, not knowing what to say. Zhou Mikang glanced at her lightly and waved to her. The female worker felt her heart lighten and ran out as if to escape. As a result, she realized when she got out of the door that her boss was squad leader Zhou, and she just ran out. What was going on? I had no choice but to bite the bullet and go back with a flattering smile on my face. Squad leader, what do you think we should do? Zhou Nanping looked at Zhou Mixang. Let's make arrangements first. I'll ask your factory director to send someone else on duty. Zhou Mikang said and walked straight to the table, picked up the phone and dialed. Zhou Nanping curled her lips, turned and walked out. The female worker was so frightened that she quickly followed him out. By the way, this man was quite good looking, so why did he scare her so much? She was not so scared when she saw the factory director and said. Thinking of what Zhou Mikang just said. She was relieved again. She could call the factory director. Is that an ordinary person? So. It was normal for her to be scared when she saw him. But, she quietly glanced at Zhou Nanping who was walking in front. What was the relationship between that man and squad leader Zhou? He was so cruel to monitor Zhou. None of squad leader Zhou's men are that cruel to squad leader Zhou. Li Qiao. Hurry up, Zhou Nanping turned around and glared at her. You're dragging your feet when you walk, have you, the team leader, done enough? Just say you've done enough, and I'll transfer someone right away. No, I didn't do enough. The female worker named Li Qiao was so frightened that she took a few steps to stand side by side with Zhou Nanping, and then quickly stepped back half a step with a cautious look on her face. Seeing her like this, Zhou Nanping felt inexplicably better. She was transferred here just over 3 months ago, and it was her mother who helped her. Although she said she didn't care and didn't want to go back to her parents' home, she was still grateful to her mother in her heart. Ever since something happened to the Xiao family and his son, the Fang family has been in deep trouble. The father-in-law retired early, the husband was beaten to death, and the brother-in-law and sister-in-law were both reduced to the lowest level. When they came home every day, they felt gloomy and gloomy. For a time, she felt that her life had no hope at all. She went back to her parents' house to ask for help, but her parents didn't agree. Her husband's family took out all their anger on her. But she also really felt that her mother's family was too ruthless. No matter what their previous relationship was, she was always the Zhou family's daughter. Why couldn't she help her at the critical moment? During that time, she was in a dilemma. Things were not going well at home, and she was also ostracized at work. She hated her parents' family, and was angry with her husband's family. She even had the idea of leaving this world. But She wouldn't be reconciled when things came to pass, if she really left. Fang Tao will definitely marry another woman. She can't accept another woman taking her place. It was better to die than live, so she gave up. She originally thought that the gloomy days would pass like that, but things finally turned around. Her job was transferred to the current Jinghua glass factory as the monitor of Class B in Workshop 1. In the past, she would have ignored this position, but when the Fang family fell to that level, this position successfully made her feel better. I originally thought that life would go on peacefully, but I didn't expect. Monitor, monitor. Li Qiao's shout brought Zhou Nanping back to her senses. It turned out that the two of them had arrived at the furnace mouth of the number 2 unit unknowingly. Seeing her, Wang Qiang, the captain of Unit 2, put on a smile and said, "Squad leader Zhou, if I bother you with such a trivial matter, you don't trust me too much, right?" "How are you now?" Zhou Nanping asked. "It will be fixed right away. There is just a slight leak in the mouth. If I tighten it tighter, it will be fine." Wang Qiang said while snorting at Li Qiao, "I promised you it would be fixed right away. Why don't you go to the squad leader, file a complaint there? You just can't stand the peace of the monitor, right?" "You obviously." Zhou Nanping interrupted her, "Okay, that's it. You go to the turntable and have a look. If it's okay, leave it like that. If it's still not okay, ask Captain Wang to adjust it again." Wang Qiang nodded and bowed in assurance, "I will definitely adjust this machine to its best condition. Don't worry, monitor." Without replying to him, Zhou Nanping turned around and left. In just a moment, the smile on Wang Qiang's face disappeared completely. He took a sip and muttered in a low voice, "What the hell, do you really think you are a dishonor? If it weren't for my sister, let's see if I have the mind to deal with you. It's taken care of." Zhou Nanping sat across from Zhou Mixang and said calmly, "The third brother is here to call for punishment, right?" "What do you think?" Zhou Mixang looked at her expressionlessly. "If I hadn't thought of you as a member of the Zhou family, I wouldn't have come here today. Even if I sentenced you to death, I would have to let you die clearly. Isn't that right?" "Third brother didn't even ask me why I was sentenced to death for doing that." Zhou Nanping raised the corner of her mouth mockingly, "If you marry a wife, you really treat your sister like a piece of shit." "Okay, tell me." The coldness in Zhou Mixang's eyes deepened. "I'd like to hear what kind of flower you can name." "I can't tell you what kind of flower it is, but I can tell you the truth." After a pause and a long breath, Zhou Nanping looked at him steadily. "Third brother, what kind of person do you think I am? Except for the Fang Tao family, do you care about what other people think of you?" Zhou Mixang's eyes were filled with disappointment. "If you care even a little bit, you wouldn't do such a thing. So this is how third brother sees me." Zhou Nanping smiled sarcastically. "That's right, if he didn't see me like this, he wouldn't have let me live like that without asking. While your family is reunited and living a happy life, I am living in dire straits. If you had even thought about me, I would not have come this far. Except for my mother, you probably no longer regard me as a member of the Zhou family, right? Actually, I didn't care at first. Just think of me as a Zhou family member. Anyway, I've been used to it since I was a child. However, your wife shouldn't have treated me like that when I was in the most difficult time. If it weren't for her, Fang Tao wouldn't be where I am now." Zhou Mixang interrupted her, "Let's get to the point. The topic is, years ago, Fang Tao and I went back to Zhou's family for help. Because Fang Tao was ostracized in the work unit, we wanted the family to help him adjust. At the door, I happened to meet my third sister-in-law who was coming back from get off work. She obviously saw us, but she went in without even saying hello, and looked at us with a particularly cold look. The third brother also knows Fang Tao's character. He couldn't stand such indifference. He was about to go back at that time, but I stopped him and we went in together. As a result, She bit her lip. I just said what I meant, and Grandma said taught us a lesson. At that time, the third sister-in-law was sitting next to Grandma, looking at us with a smile. If she had not said anything to Grandma, Grandma would definitely not have that attitude. She comes from that kind of family and has the nerve to act so condescending. Why does she have the nerve? If it weren't for the third brother, would she have the capital? After leaving Joe's house, Fang Tao didn't say a word to me. Later, he became more and more indifferent to me. It wasn't until a few days ago that I found out that he had hooked up with the director's daughter. That woman took advantage of her father's influence to transfer Fang Tao's job. Fang Tao had already submitted a divorce application to his work unit. If I didn't agree, he would beat me. Biting her lip, Zhou Nanping continued, it took a lot of effort to get pregnant. The baby is just gone. Do you think I should hate her? Zhou Mikang's face moved slightly. Did you have a miscarriage? Yeah, why didn't I go back after the Chinese New Year? Zhou Nanping smiled sadly, none of you asked me. If you had cared about me even a little bit, I wouldn't be where I am today. Had you figured out where you went wrong, you wouldn't be where you are today. Zhou Mikang's eyes were full of anger. You can't figure out your own situation and only know how to blame others. This is your tragedy. Do you understand the reason? Of course third brother would say that. The sadness on Zhou Nanping's face became more intense. It's okay, whatever third brother says, it's up to third brother to deal with it as he pleases. Since I did it, I thought when this day comes, no matter what the consequences are, I will just bear them. You really should take it upon yourself, otherwise, you will never understand in your life. Zhou Mikang snorted coldly, I have said so much, all of which are blaming your third sister-in-law. Why don't you just be frank? Just tell me that you are jealous of your third sister-in-law's good marriage. As for why you were so cruel to your third sister-in-law, I also know that it was just to let the Fang family see the Zhou family's jokes in the hope that Fang Tao would change his mind. Zhou Nanping, your selfishness has definitely reached its peak, so this time, I will never show mercy. I am here just to let you understand my attitude. And Zhou Mikang looked at her steadily, it's my decision how to deal with you. My wife doesn't know anything. Do you understand? To be continued.